Bichu, the haunting of Blackstone Jail. The fog rolled in thick and unrelenting over the quiet town of Blackstone, Ohio. Perched at the edge of the town like a sentinel of despair stood the infamous Blackstone Jail, a decaying relic of the past. Its walls, made of weather-worn stone, exuded a cold, foreboding aura that made locals shudder even in broad daylight. Many whispered that the jail was cursed, haunted by the restless spirits of prisoners who had met their end in its grim confines. Harper Wells, a young journalist with an unquenchable thirst for uncovering the truth, arrived in Blackstone armed with a notebook, a digital recorder, and a healthy dose of skepticism. She had heard the chilling tales of the jail from an old college friend and decided to investigate for an exposé she hoped would catapult her career. She wasn't afraid of ghosts, or so she told herself. Her guide for the evening was a local historian, Ethan Crane, who had spent years chronicling the jail's dark history. They met at the jail's rusted iron gates as the sun dipped below the horizon. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Ethan asked, his tone tinged with both caution and curiosity. "Absolutely," Harper replied, though her voice betrayed a hint of nervousness. "I want to experience everything." The gates groaned in protest as Ethan pushed them open. The sound echoed unnervingly through the chilling air. Inside, the jail felt even more oppressive. The scent of mildew and decay lingered, and the walls seemed to breathe with a life of their own. Ethan handed Harper a flashlight, its weak beam barely piercing the dense shadows. "They say the jail's most infamous resident, Marcus Vane, still roams these halls," Ethan began, his voice low. "He was a murderer, convicted of butchering 6 townsfolk. The townspeople didn't wait for justice. They stormed the jail and lynched him in his cell. It said his spirit never left." Harper rolled her eyes, masking her growing unease. "Convenient. Let's see if Marcus feels like chatting tonight." As they moved deeper into the jail, the air grew heavier. The flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Harper began recording, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm standing in the cell block of Blackstone Jail, where countless prisoners lived out their final days. The atmosphere here is thick, almost tangible. Ethan, can you tell us more about the haunting?" Before Ethan could respond, a loud clang echoed from down the corridor. Both froze, their eyes locked in shared alarm. "Probably just the wind," Ethan muttered, though he didn't sound convinced. Harper's journalistic instincts kicked in. "Let's check it out." They followed the sound to a row of cells, their bars coated in rust. One door stood ajar, swinging slightly as if beckoning them in. Harper's breath caught. She stepped closer, the beam of her flashlight trembling as it illuminated the cell's interior. A crude message was etched into the wall: "Leave now or suffer." Ethan stepped back. "That wasn't there last time." Harper leaned in, studying the markings. They looked fresh, the edges of the scratches sharp. Before she could comment, the temperature plummeted. Her breath misted in the air, and an unnatural chill crept up her spine. "Did you feel that?" she whispered. Ethan nodded, his face pale. "We should go." But Harper wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. She turned on her recorder. "Marcus Vane, are you here? Can you give us a sign?" The silence that followed was deafening. Then, a faint whisper slithered through the air, indecipherable, but undeniably real. Harper's eyes widened as the recorder picked up the sound. She played it back, her hands trembling. The whisper grew clearer on the recording. "Get out." Ethan grabbed her arm. "That's it. We're leaving." Harper resisted. "No, we're close. I can feel it." Suddenly, the cell door slammed shut with a force that shook the walls. The flashlight flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Harper fumbled for her phone, its weak light offering little comfort. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor, growing louder with each passing second. "Who's there?" Harper called, her voice cracking. The footsteps stopped abruptly. Then a deep, guttural growl filled the air. A figure materialized in the dim light, a shadowy silhouette with glowing red eyes. It exuded malice, its presence suffocating. Ethan whispered a prayer under his breath. "That's him. That's Marcus." The figure lunged, and Harper screamed, dropping her phone. The light went out completely, and chaos erupted. Cold hands gripped her arms, pulling her into the void. She struggled, her screams swallowed by the oppressive darkness. Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. "Harper, grab my hand!" She reached out blindly, her fingers brushing against his. With a desperate pull, he yanked her free. The oppressive force dissipated, and the room fell silent once more. Gasping for air, they scrambled back to the entrance, the malevolent energy pursuing them like a predator stalking its prey. They burst through the gates, collapsing onto the cold, damp ground outside. The fog seemed lighter, the air easier to breathe. Harper clutched her recorder, still running, as if it were a lifeline. "What just happened?" she gasped. Ethan shook his head, his expression haunted. "Something we weren't meant to see or hear." Harper reviewed the recording later that night in her motel room. The whispering voice was clear, its tone dripping with malice. "You were warned." She never returned to Blackstone Jail, but the experience stayed with her, a constant reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead. Her exposé went viral, earning her fame, but at a cost. Nightmares plagued her, and she often awoke to the sound of whispers in the dark. Some truths, she realized, are better left buried.